Welcome to the Code of Traditional Archery, brought to you by Primitive Stone Archery and the founder, Grant Richardson.
Welcome to the Code of Traditional Archery podcast. My name is Grant Richardson, the owner and founder of Primitive Stone Archery, and your host. I'm very excited about this podcast. It involves something very close to my heart, Damon Howatt Archery. And this is an interview with Mr. Josh Boram we conducted, and he covers his background, the acquisition of Damon Howatt Archery, and some of his visions for the future. I hope you enjoy listening and watching this as much as did interviewing Josh. Josh has an infectious passion, not only for traditional archery, but for helping people get into the sport and find the bow that's right for them. Enjoy.
Yeah, we'll go for it, man. However you want to start.
Cool. So I'm super pleased to welcome Josh Boram, the new owner of Howatt Archery, to our podcast.
Thanks,
super
man.
exciting. Yeah.
It's
So welcome, Josh.
Great to be on the show, man. Sorry it's been taking me so long to get to it. We had a crazy ATA show, so finally now we're had a little bit of time. So thanks for connecting. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a huge deal for me actually, because I as you know, I've shot nothing but Howatt for close to 40 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because the bow actually becomes connected to you. There's sort of a mojo that happens between that, right? So yeah, I'm super excited for me being a pretty diehard Damon Howatt fan. So now it's under new ownership and direction. And I know a lot of people are super excited about Howatt coming back. I mean, on my Instagram page alone, I think I've had maybe 300 people reach out, right? Just on ours. So, tell us about yourself. What led up to you purchasing Damon Howatt?
Yeah, no, thanks, man. Yeah, appreciate it again for having me on here. It started out, I would say, right around 9 years ago. As many of you guys may know or may not know, Martin Archery acquired Damon Howatt back in the day. Back in the fifth, I don't know the exact date, but it was a while back. And so essentially, when I joined the company, I was actually recruited for doing like different graphic design related tasks, and that was 9 years ago. That was when. And I was actually, funny thing is actually when I was a kid, I actually had a Martin Cougar 2 bow. So like back a long time ago, it went way back. So when I got recruited, I was like, no way, it's Martin. And then I realized, hey, I'd actually owned one of their old compound bows. It was so cool. So I was like so excited because I'm like, man, this is like such a cool company. And I get to work for them. So I went there and actually learned a lot about everything, just about archery in general, because it was more of just like a hobby before. And I was able to learn a lot about the process. I mean, I was out there, I'd regularly, on a daily basis, see the Howatt team out there, all the bowyers working on stuff. And I always was like, man, that's so cool. Like the process that they'd go through. And I've actually loved woodworking. I've built all kinds of stuff. I mean, anything from cabinets to just all kinds of things. I mean, but archery is it's definitely a different, it's a different animal, but it's really cool because like you were saying, it's connected to you as a hunter or as an archer. I mean, the product that's in your hand every day is the most crucial part of the sport, really. I mean, other than the talent that you actually have. And that's the cool thing about traditional. As I worked for Martin Archery, I was like, you know what? I had a compound bow because that was just the rage. And I was just like, man, it's just like so boring after a while. You just pull this thing back, you peep sight it, you're just done. It's like, what am I gonna even do anymore? I mean, you just keep shooting it and you're it's just so easy that it almost doesn't become fun. I mean, normally the things in life that take work, those are the most satisfying and the most gratifying things to do. And I think that's the beautiful thing about traditional archery specifically it's the most gratifying thing that you can possibly develop as a skill. And that's at least my own opinion. So when I started shooting some of the Howatts, I was like, man, this is so much more fun than compound. And so I put the thing away. I think it was a Martin Nemesis Nitro. but I never, like, friends would come over and I didn't even want to touch it. It's just like, okay, like I want something that I can kind of have that instinct feel where I'm not just sighting down something. It's just so much more fun to just pull that thing back and you just have like this. Yeah, I mean, it's instinct. I mean, a lot of people argue about, is it instinctual, is it not? I think in the end though, it's just a fun sport. Like, it's just in every way it's fun. And so I loved the Howatts, just all of those bows, shot them. I had multiple, anytime I could get my hands on another one, I'd buy another model. So I liked the product. But then later on, I could see, like, as I was working there, it was definitely 100% focus on compound. So there was much less focus on the traditional side. I mean, everyone wants the compound, right? Well, that's what they thought. And so, and I still think, compound obviously takes up the largest demographic of archery currently because everyone's excited about it. I mean, it's easy to hunt, whatnot. But what I still always had just kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, man, like, traditional, just, it doesn't change, like, it's something that, it's innovation proof. So for example, you can come up with cool ideas and cool designs, which, by the way, I'm really excited about Damon Howatt, because we've got some really exciting designs that are going to be coming about in the future. Because a lot of people are like, man, why isn't there any new designs? You just keep selling the old stuff. I get that. Just anyone watching here who's also just like, man, like, are you going to do anything new? We are, and we'll talk about that more later on the video or in the podcast here. But I think, just to go back to the question, what led up to purchasing Howatt, it was kind of like that initial love for traditional archery.
Sure.
I would say about 2 years ago, I learned a lot through the company, and I saw a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, there was a lot happening. I went through 3 ownership cycles, and they kept calling me back to help because they're like, we can't figure this out, that out. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll help, and many times I'd even help out, for free, or just to help them out, just because I was like, these are nice guys, like, whatever, I'll just help you out. And many times, even with this latest ownership cycle, I just help them out. I mean, today they called me on something and I'm like, sure, I'll just help you out. I mean, it's, I like to treat people good, and it just feels good to help them out. But, there wasn't a lot of love for that traditional side though, that I could see. There wasn't a huge amount of focus. And so I tried to buy it, actually, because the first company, I don't even know if they realized that Damon Howatt was a valuable asset, and they were just interested in the compound stuff. And so I contacted one of the guys there who was helping manage. His name was Scott Landwehr. Some of you guys may have known him, who may be watching this, but really cool guy. But he was like, yeah, I'll let you in and you can look at everything. And so I did like an inventory. I took photos of all the equipment, everything. I had the process documented because I actually kept in contact with some of these boyers, Antonio, we've got Ben here. Like, so I would keep in contact with them, and I asked them all, hey, would you be willing to come back, at that point? And they're like, yeah, we'd love to. Like, we don't know why they're moving it or shutting it down. And so I kept contact with those people, and I was like, man, we could put this back together. So, and that was probably now that I'm thinking, it's probably around 3 years ago, but it just didn't work out. I guess that company, the Martin company at that time, they decided randomly, because they'd already taken the compound stuff. They were just ignoring the traditional, or at least that's what I thought. And then they decided, hey, we want this. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? Like, that door closed, so we'll let it go. And they actually didn't even contact me. Then, like, a year later, they're like, we need help. Our website's terrible. We need help with this, that, and the other. And then I kept contact with them. And anyways, to make a long story short, before I take up the whole podcast just talking about this.
No, it's great.
They ended up contacting me and being like, you know what, like, we just, we tried to move it to Georgia, but, move it away from the Pacific Northwest, but it's just not working. And we're not sure if we can find the right people to make this happen. And they were just unsure. And they're like, you know what, we want to sell it. And so I was like, well, they're like, could you help us sell it? And so I was like, yeah, maybe I could. So I actually put together a little thing about it to sell it. And I actually sent it to a couple of people who I knew who might be interested in this type of thing. And they were like, yeah, maybe I do want it, maybe I don't. And anyways, no one was really like materializing. And I actually was on a business trip down to California with another company that I work for and consult for. And I told them about it. And they're like, man, that is a really cool company. Like, and I was like, yeah, I really wish I could just buy it. But the price, I'm just not sure I can pull it off easily right now with what I'm doing. I just wasn't sure, because I was like, this is kind of a lot of money. It's a very valuable brand. I really feel like, a legacy brand like this, they don't come up every day. Right. And it's a rare chance that I have an in on that. And so but I was like, you know what, I'll just give him an offer. I pray about it, whatever. I'm just going to give him an offer and we'll see what happens. And I felt at peace at that moment. I was like, you know what, if I get it, I don't, it's okay. I've tried to get it once and it wasn't right. And if it's right this time, it's going to happen. And they came back and they're like, you know what, we really like you. And we're going to take your offer. And I was like blown away. So that's kind of what kicked it all off, and I still had a little bit of fear inside of me. I'm like, man, are we going to be able to like bring back these people? And I looked at they didn't have any good financial statements. I mean, the whole thing was a mess. And I'm not trying to put down the previous owners in any way. They're great people, but they actually weren't personally managing the Damon Howatt plant. They'd given it to someone else. And it was just, it wasn't, I won't even get started because there's a mess there. And there's no point to put anyone down about that, but it was difficult to even look at what was left with things. I mean, I had to and I was able to use those pictures that I'd taken like 3 or 4 years ago. I was able to take those pictures and say, hey, what about this equipment? What about this piece? What about this piece? And I used that to negotiate a good price because, some of the stuff had been lost or stolen or who knows what. But luckily I got everything back. And the crazy part of the story actually is there's some crucial pieces of equipment like the riser glue up spindle. It's this massive spin thing that actually holds all the risers. I don't know if you've ever seen it in one of maybe some of you have, but that riser piece that basically it holds all the risers and does the initial glue ups before the main press. So those beautiful different patterns that you see that are laminations, that would have been difficult. I would have had to come up with the whole thing. Well, those were actually stuck because the previous owners were like, oh, we don't need that. And, a lot of the Boyers, I went and contacted them and they're like, yeah, you do need that. Like, these are really important things. If you don't have them, it's going to be a struggle to get this thing going again. Sure. And, we don't want to not have that if we're coming back to help. So I'm like, okay, we've definitely got to get this equipment. So I struggled, man. I contacted the port of Walla Walla because it was stuck there because of some negotiations that they had with unpaid rent. As I said, I don't want to, throw anyone under the bus, but there was some real problems there. But luckily they worked with me. The previous Martin ownership paid their bills, and they were like, well, we're just going to throw it away, but if you get it today, we'll give it to you, all this stuff.
Oh, wow.
And so I think I was actually talking to you, Grant, when I was.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we want to do a podcast. And I was like, man, I can't make it. And this is actually at the same kind of time when I should have been like planning for Kalamazoo and a lot of events that I wanted to go to, but I was like, this is just not going to work out. Like, I am literally down to the day to get this equipment out. So I literally went over there with a friend, got a trailer, and I loaded up everything I possibly could to salvage, but I got everything that we needed. I got. Awesome. So that is just, I mean, it's a huge, like almost a miracle. It's just insane that I was able to get this stuff because I mean, they were going to throw it away. And then one of the other Boyers was like, yeah, you might want to go look by the dumpster because they might have thrown some stuff away that were good. So I went through and looked at that, and oh, sure enough, a bunch of the pieces for some of the rider molds were all stuck in this trash can. They're like stainless strips that actually go for the ceramic heaters before the presses go in. So basically it's the press, it's a ceramic heater. This is new, by the way, for Damon Howatt. So we have these new ceramic heaters on top of that metal piece. And then it's got another polyurethane type of plastic heat-proof shielding that the glue kind of runs over. So basically we had all these pieces, but a lot of them were just, that just kind of shows you the lack of, I mean, in my opinion, the lack of respect for the business, period. I mean, there was just no respect for any of it. But luckily I was like just able to salvage so many of these things. I mean, it's just, when I think about it, I'm like, man, that was crazy. Like, that was close. So no kidding. Everything, dude. It was nuts, man. Definitely crazy.
Yeah. That sounds pretty serendipitous, eh?
It's
just the whole timing of it. Yeah. That's crazy.
And I wasn't able to make it to Kalamazoo to that event. A lot of people really wanted me to. And the guy who actually manages it was a super nice guy who was like, he really wanted me to come. He's like, man, I'll give you a good deal on a booth. Like, super, super nice. Like, the people in this industry are just like, I don't even know how to say it, but they're just so kind, so nice. Like, everyone I've met is just like, I mean, the ATA show, I mean, we'll get to that maybe in here, but it was pretty crazy. So anyways, I'll let you go to the next point.
Yeah, no, like, tell us about the ATA. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal because, I mean, I'm sure some people were shocked to see Howatt there. I mean, back in December when you started announcing things again, I'm like, what? Because for us, we were looking, because we have a profile that's a little different. we saw, a need from people transitioning from a compound that were, they were split in between that little bit of elitism that goes on about shooting process. And I'm like, well, you can shoot however you want, but I can show you how to shoot better if you build the attributes. And I said, it's too bad Howatt isn't in business. I said, I would love to have put a bow into that package there. And then that very morning I walk out and I look at social media. I'm like, what? I think it was amazing. So I'm sure you had that same reaction at ATA a little bit, right?
It was, oh man, ATA. So like, just to give you a little history about it, is before I went to ATA, I actually went back to Terry Martin, one of the guys who actually was one of the ownership of Martin before all these ownership cycles that I was actually involved with. So
Yeah.
I went back to him and I was like, I told him about it. He was just so happy. He's like, man, that was so cool. He was like, the Martin team there. I mean, Damon Howatt was like a big part of that for so long until Compound kind of took control. And I think the cool thing is he's like, you know what, like, these other ownership cycles who purchased these companies, they didn't even care about it. They didn't even ask us for anything, any advice or anything. And I was just like, please tell me everything. And so he ended up telling me the story. He showed me, and I still have photos. I might send one to you. You can actually put on your podcast here on the video, but it's an actual photo of the Mel Johnson bow that actually Mel Johnson had when he shot that record buck, which is kind of a cool story. But he's actually got the bow there. And he's like, when they were selling everything, he just got rid of all these traditional bows, and he went to the auction and bought everything. So I had a really fun talk with Terry, and he recounted all of the times, the Olympic, when they shot the Olympic arrow, he was recounting those times where it was just, they were like, man, I hope this bow shoots it. And it's just so cool to like connect with that history. And I think that's what's important, is like when you care about something, you really care about its history as well, and how that moves the company forward. So I wanted to go back to its roots and like figure out, hey, like, what is this, what was missing here with these other ownership cycles? I mean, there's a lot, but one of the things is just that love of the traditional side and the focus on it. And, Damon Howatt was always a traditional line.
Sure.
But it just wasn't the focus, it's kind of like, you can't love two masters, you'll hate one and serve the other. I sometimes feel that way when it comes to Martin, because really they put so much effort into the compound side that there was just a lack of focus. And that's where you see the lack of new models coming out, the lack of, they just throw another piece of different wood. And I think that's the complaint that some people, there was a video that was recently posted on YouTube by, I think it was Archery Supplies. And he was like, where is Damon Howatt? Where are they now? And I thought that was kind of an interesting video, which I want to make another video myself. But yeah, I get it. Like it is a concern. It's like, where are they? Like, what's happening? There was just no communication. There's no focus. It was maybe like 1 or 2 pages in the back of their catalog. But now when I go to ATA, going back to that question on the ATA, the exciting thing is that now we have our own catalog. We've got our own website. In fact, the crazy thing is the last like 2 ownership cycles, nobody even bought DamonHowatt.com from the original owner, Terry Martin, that owned Martin Archery. Like, they didn't even care about the website.
Yeah.
And so I went to him. I mean, this is a nice, I was terrified they were going to be holding that domain for a ton of money. Before I even considered buying Damon Howatt and made any official offers, I actually went to him and I said, hey, would you sell me the domain? And I offered him, I think I offered him like 20 grand. I was like, I'll buy DamonHowatt.com for 20K if you'll sell it to me. And he came back and he was like, you know what? Like, I love what you're doing. I'll just give it to you for 5 grand. So I was able to get the domain alone, which was so important and crucial to make this thing successful, is it needs to have its own website. I mean, that's what people are searching for. So, I mean, that domain's been around since like, I think the 80s or something, but it never was really used for anything. It was just a website. And then the Diversus Capital purchased Martin Archery. They didn't even buy the domain. I don't know what happened. I mean, that would have been like as a business owner myself, that's the one of your main things. I mean, your website is kind of like your parcel of land per se that you can build on in the digital world. So like, if you don't have that, like, what the heck are you doing? So, and then the next company, they didn't buy it. I mean, it's just like, it kind of blows my mind. But like I said, you can't love two masters. And I think that's what was so cool about this getting split from the Martin side is now Damon Howatt is its own company. It gets to focus on what it's done best for so long, and that is traditional archery. In fact, when I was working with Martin Archery, the one product that never had problems or very, very minimal in returns was the Damon Howatt wood bow section. In fact, they had issues with compounds. They had nightmares, I mean, I won't even go into it, but I lived through many cycles and got to see a lot of issues. But the Damon Howatt, there was just never any problems because they're done the same way. I mean, there's a certain process to it. And if you get that process down precisely and everything from your glue up to your tip in to your tillering to centering, like whatever, like all of these different parts of the process, if you have that process perfect, your boilers are good, they know what they're doing. And like, you got a good product. And so I just always, going back to the ATA, we go to the ATA show and I'm just like, I'm thinking, I almost was scared. I was like, man, did I just purchase a very expensive tax write-off, or is this going to actually work out? I mean, you just don't know, because like, I'm not sure if people are even interested. It was really scary. And I still remember, like, the first couple days coming up to the ATA show, I was working night and day on the website, like working so hard on the website because I wanted that to look perfect. And before the links over, and I did this reservation thing, which is still live right now, by the way, for anyone wondering. You can go to damonhowatt.com and you can basically pick your bow, your poundage, right hand, left hand, and then essentially reserve a bow. And then when we're ready to produce, we'll give you an email. But so anyways, with that being said, I put that out there, not even sure if we were going to have much of a business. Like, I was scared. And I get to ATA. I didn't even know where we were going to be at ATA. Luckily, the previous owners negotiated with me, like when I purchased the company, to have a small spot. They gave me a small spot. I didn't even know it was a shooting little range spot. So I was like, oh man, people are going to be shooting bows. I didn't even know they'd have that. So like, I found a local supplier for some arrows. He brought them by the show. I bought some arrows from the cash. I mean, it was just like, I'm just like literally trying to piece this thing together, and it's just crazy. So I get everything. I get the arrows, and I'm like, man, I literally brought a box of bows on the airplane, and like, they were all in this massive cut down TV box. I mean, I'm telling you, like, I'm scrappy, like, if I need to make it happen, even if I don't have the right tools essentially, or the right time. I mean, it was so short notice. I mean, the thing's only been like, 3 or 4 weeks old. So we're talking fresh out of the kitchen here on this one. So anyways, I get there, and I'm not sure what people are going to say. And oh my word, like, the reception was crazy. Like, I made a point to stop every single dealer that I possibly could, as well as anyone who would come to the show. And both my wife and I were there, and just nonstop positive comments, man. Like, I didn't hear one bad thing. So many of them were like, hey, like, you're your own company now? No way. And I just would tell them the story. I'm like, hey, we're now the oldest traditional only archery company, basically. And a lot of it was funny. The bear guys came by and they're like, isn't that stretching the truth a bit? Like, are you sure? And I was like, well, I think that's true, because Damon Howatt it's been a traditional company, and it's definitely been a traditional company for the longest time, as far as I know. So it was a really cool story to tell people, and it was just amazing. I mean, honestly, the reception, we signed up tons of dealers, had tons of interest, and the reservations started coming in. That first day, we had, I don't know if it was like 15 or 20 reservations of bows the first day I launched it. And I didn't even post on social media and be like, hey, we have reservations open. In fact, I've like mentioned it a couple times here and there, but I've never like officially even said, like, this is just organic traffic coming in. And that's the benefit of having your own website, having a good website, focusing on one thing, traditional archery. And I'm blown away right now. I mean, we have enough reservations to keep up. In fact, I think we've received more orders in the last 3 weeks, or more reservations, I should say, in the last 3 weeks than the history of the previous ownership has done every 6 months. So like, in the last 3 weeks, we have more reservations than they would normally do in their highest 6-month period. And that's a guarantee, because and it's just crazy how many orders. I mean, we've been getting, like I said, it's been, 10 to 15 every day since then. It just isn't even stopping. And there's some days that are lower, but it's just, I'm kind of like blown away. And that's with no marketing, no nothing. I mean, I do stuff on Instagram, but Instagram doesn't, they don't really allow you to promote stuff. So it's kind of difficult to do that. But yeah, dude, I mean, I'm just so so surprised by the reception at ATA specifically. Like a lot of people were so excited, and a lot of people too, they came by and they shot the bows, they shot the Conviction, and they're compound only people, and they shoot this thing. They're like, oh my word. They're like, that is addicting. Can I buy this thing today? And I'm like, I'd love to, but no, because this is like one of our only prototypes. But it was really fun to like see so many people too. A lot of the younger generation who just got sucked into compounds and that was it. Now they're like, man, this is just so easy. I'd love to try something a little more raw, a little more real. And that's when they're gonna, a lot of dealers also said, hey, we've had a lot of people interested in traditional lately.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. Like, what is the coincidence that right when I buy this company, it seems to be one of the years where traditional is becoming a bigger thing? I mean, that is just like, you can't even plan that. Like, it's just like, it's kind of a miracle. A lot of these things, just kind of crazy how that works. So,
for sure.
It was amazing. ATA was a blast, and I would have loved to be at Kalamazoo. I feel terrible I wasn't able to make it. It was just right when I was trying to rescue equipment from the previous spot, and just, it was a mess of things. So anyways.
Yeah, there's a never-ending bunch of orgs out there. I'm sure you have lots of invites. Yeah, I actually met Mel Johnson and his buck a long time ago.
No way.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah, it was at a big organization's meet there. Yeah, in the States. It was pretty cool. Yep. Yeah, it was a long time ago. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's that part of that sort of historic tradition. I mean, I've chronoed a couple of my hunters alongside some customs, and they're like, no, that must be wrong, shoot again. And so I've shot again, and that's with a hunting weight arrow. They're just blown away. Right?
I gotta tell you, that brings me to something funny with the Damon Howatt Hunter, which has been, obviously the top selling bow as far as I've seen in the Howatt line. One funny thing that Terry told me in the very beginning, he was like, there's this really funny story, and I'd actually love to interview him so he could tell it, because he would probably tell it even better. But one of the things he said, he was like, it was really interesting because they internally, Martin Archery did chronograph tests between the Hunter and their leading compound models. Now, I don't know which exact ones, but for nearly a decade or so, the chronograph results of the Hunter time and time again beat all of their compound bows. But they purposely were like, people only want these compounds, so we can't even like we don't even want to mention this, right? Yeah. Isn't that funny how like the traditional Hunter still outbeat all of these other compounds and all the technology for so many years? I don't know. I just thought that was like so cool. And, obviously it'd be interesting, if you chronograph some of the latest and greatest technology, it'd probably be different results, but
sure, of course. Yeah.
The traditional still holds its weight, I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Good. Yeah, so I got to tell you, Josh, I've actually talked to a few of the old school bowyers. I mean, Jewett and I talked a few times because he built 4 of the bows that I've kept.
That's so cool.
So it's kind of neat, right? And I've actually talked to his nephew a couple months ago. Yeah, it was kind of cool. So one of his nephews anyway. But, with regards to, the talent you have there, can you talk a little bit about that, some of the older bowyer talent that you've...
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, as I said, like in the very beginning, when I was first wanting to buy this, probably like 4 years ago, I'd contacted everyone and I was like, hey, like, are you willing to come back? Are you willing to come back? And everyone's like, hey, yeah, I'd love to. They were honestly sad that everything had been shut down. So I essentially was able to talk to them, and they're fine with doing that. The ones now that are available now, a lot of them kind of got burned by the previous ownership. They didn't get paid right, or I mean, it was a lot of stuff was crazy. I mean, people were getting paid in bows. I don't even know. Like, it was a mess. But luckily, they're like super excited with the new ownership that I've taken ownership of with this company, and so essentially, a lot of them are willing to come back and work in some capacity or another. So none of them have been like, yeah, no, I'm not interested at all. They're all going to be helping in some way. I'm not going to say exactly, I don't want to, give any inaccurate, statements, but they're definitely helping. In fact, one of the guys, Ben, super awesome guy. He's actually built tons of his own bows for many, many years. And he's got a really cool, he's actually right now actually working on some really exciting new models for Damon Howatt currently. And he's working on actually helping create the molds, and he's going to do a bunch of very exciting things with that. So that is something. And you know, I know I've shown you a little bit of what we're planning. I can speak to a little bit. I'm not going to show anyone yet, but to those people who are like, is Damon Howatt going to do anything new in the future?
Yeah,
Yes,
the takedown thing has come up with a lot of people that I know. It's been a big thing, right? Because
we're going. You know, I'll tell you one thing. We have a couple options for takedowns in the mix, and one is going to be very exciting, and it's going to retain. You know, one thing that's very important is keeping to that original DNA that Damon Howatt has. You know, the same styling. We want to keep. You know, we want to update some stuff and do some really cool things too, but we want to keep those fragments of DNA and the same quality, obviously, that encompasses the entire Damon Howatt line. That has to stay the same. That will stay the same. And you know, a lot of those same original boyers will be part of that process. So I think that's important. You know, a lot of people call me up and they're like, "Hey, you know, when can I get my bow? Do you guys have the same guys?" You know, I think it's important that people know that that we are maintaining that original Howatt quality. If not, I think a lot better actually, because now we have a more even heating process for the ceramic heating. You know, Mike Bush, actually, one of the guys, he actually helped with some of that to get some of that set up. He's not currently employed by us per se, but he's, you know, I'm consulting with anyone who can give us feedback and help.
Sure.
And
Yeah, that's important.
A lot of these guys are invaluable. You know, that's what's so important, is that you have the people there who are willing to continue with the journey. And so I think we've got a lot of those same people. And we're going to be adding new people. You know, if you're a boyer and you're around either Washington or Oregon, we're right on the border between Washington and Oregon. So if you're anywhere around there and you're interested in helping us out, there's a chance for an opportunity with Damon Howatt. So just keep that in mind for anyone listening. I mean, if you're, you know, even if you're willing to relocate, there may be a chance as well. We're trying to bring some of the best people here if there are any who want to. So that option is open.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's fantastic. I know I can tell you the Mamba that I actually have, that Mamba was a semi-custom order because the grip shape, and the guy didn't like it. They got it here. That's in the mid-80s. It was the second year after they redesigned that bow. And of course, at the beginning of this podcast, I tell a little story about that. And it's probably going to hopefully turn into a future article too at some point. But I got to tell you, I mean, they've just always really fit me, right? They really fit me well. And I know the people that are real diehards about it have too, but you know, you're always looking for, you know, as a Howdorn, you're always looking for what the next thing was. The next thing was, right? And I can only imagine how, you know, addicted people are to the vintage lines of these things, you know, in regards to what you've got plans for the future. And I mean, I told you a little bit about my contact with one of the prior owners who I shot. And you know, after winning several 3D shoots all across Ontario and some parts of Canada, right through to Nova Scotia, and he's like, we decided we're not going to go with anything, so just send them back, because there's no what did he say? I can't recall exactly, but it was a long time ago. There's no real market for traditional bows there. I'm like, oh, okay, but I guess my point was, I'm like, well, you know, you got 100 and some people at a shoot, and 25 of them want to know what you just shot, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is when someone has a bow in their hands that someone else wants to know what you're shooting. Exactly, just what you're saying. And so I think that's the cool thing about this market, is you almost, you know, if you just create great products, you know, great shooting bows, everything that's part of that, you know, like I go back to that whole Damon Howatt DNA, you know, those parts you can change, you know, we can change some of the shaping, we can do, and we're going to do some exciting things like the takedown, a wood takedown that's going to be, I believe, built off of the most popular Hunter, but it's going to have a little bit more modernized styling, different options of riser length. So, and we're probably thinking towards doing a front facing limb design, which is super exciting, which
awesome.
Which I know that was one of you were going to talk about that maybe in one of these questions, but there's some exciting that we're not, you know, I want to be a leader. I want to be innovative to where we are doing different things than other people are doing. So I don't want to just copy whatever's popular. I mean, anyone can do that, but the truth is that I want to create our own, you know, aesthetic that matches up with the previous bows, but it's something a little bit different. There's a lot of people, I mean, there's so many Damon Howatt owners out there that would love something that they can bring to a 3D shoot or to a shoot, and everyone is literally going to be like, what the heck is that? Like, I want. And that's exactly what I want, is I want to be able to get people interested just by seeing things. I mean, that's how you sell product, is people see it and they shoot it, or they see someone shooting it. And that's how it's gonna be exciting. I want to show so many people things, but I'm purposely,
Yeah.
I don't want to just release too much because I'm too excited about it. But I think I want to just release little by little, and you'll see what comes in the next couple months. It's going to be good though.
That's awesome. So what's your favorite Howatt bow right
Right
now?
now,
Not the one you got
yeah.
in your head, but you know.
So right, yeah, that one I really want, the one in my head. But
Yeah.
honestly, the one that I personally love the best is actually the Conviction, and that's
Mhm.
just because, I mean, the Dreamcatcher is just, I mean, everyone knows that was a legacy bow, a legendary bow,
Yep.
and I love the Dreamcatcher. Is actually developed and designed by one of the Boyers at Damon Howatt,
Hmm.
Ben, and man, it just shoots amazing. It's like that perfect, like the limb width up to the tips is absolutely just dialed in to where it's not too heavy, it's quiet,
Oh
it's
yeah.
just that, like, that perfect. And the grip is just like, everyone at the ATA show that like put their hand around that thing, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to take it home. So we actually improved some of the grips that were coming out, were a little bit, I mean, they were a little bit bigger than you would want, just a
Yeah.
little bit more globulous. I don't even know if that's the right word. It's a weird word, but it was just
Yeah.
kind
There's
of
like a,
big. And
yeah. Yeah. It's
so
interesting.
there's just like the slightest, I mean, we're not talking a change, I would even
Yeah.
say. It was just like a slight alteration in some of the grip on that is just, I mean, it goes back to some of the older ones that were really done well. And I think that's what's beautiful, is it just, I mean, it just turned out so good. And every time I look at it, I'm just like, I love the natural glass, that real wood, that clear glass that you can see through that natural wood. It's
Yeah.
just
It's
beautiful.
fantastic.
I mean, black is nice. Black is always, everyone's going to love that, but that natural wood all the way through. A lot of people at the ATA show too expressed their interest. They're like, yeah, I love that one. And so, I mean, I just love the look of it. I definitely, anytime I'm going to pick up one to shoot, it's that one so
Yeah,
far.
for
But I
sure.
do love the Super Elite or the Super D.
Yeah.
That's another one of my favorites. I mean, I just love the styling. I mean, it's a killer looking bow, man. Like, that's probably
Hmm.
my second favorite. And then third is just the Hunter, just because it's a good bow. I mean, you can't go wrong with a Hunter. So I
Oh
guess I
yeah.
have too many favorites. I don't know if I have one, but Conviction right now is currently my one. And then
Yep.
the one that's coming will probably be my favorite soon. But yeah, some of you guys will, yeah, follow us on Instagram or Facebook, and you'll see when that comes up probably. But
Right on. Yeah,
exciting.
I owned one of the rare Buffalo Hunters, which
Oh,
was about
cool.
2 inches longer than the Dreamcatcher, and I just let it go to a very good buddy of mine, and he's promised me, hand on his heart, that he'll give it back to me because he knows it was important to me. It was a gift from my mom and my wife actually, and they were rare as hen's teeth,
That's
and
crazy.
yeah, and it's walnut with red elm, and it's a crazy bow. But anyway, and you as well in that bow. But it's model. It looks like the sister to the Dreamcatcher almost.
That's
It's a little
awesome.
darker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Dreamcatcher, I definitely love, and we'd love to. I'm hoping to make a run of the original style Dreamcatcher with that
Yeah.
Diamond Rider. But um, yeah, first things first. And I wanted to create something new, and I think
Yeah. Yeah.
this new Conviction model, which on the website I think it's only showing the 62, but I think we're gonna have a 60 option as well. So it's gonna
Oh,
be true
that's
to the
amazing.
Dreamcatcher. So, but
Yeah,
I love it.
that's amazing. We looked for a lighter bow for our daughter's first hunting season to start on it. She's only 12, shooting a 40-pound recurve at 12.
Whoa,
No
dude,
problem. But she's
that's
been shooting since she
crazy,
was little.
man.
And
That
we just couldn't find a light enough Howitt for her. We couldn't. My wife's got a 60s Diablo, all Brazilian and Indian rosewood.
no,
Um, but it's still 50 some pounds, right? So,
yeah.
but that lighter bow, it's hard to get them in lighter weights. I'd say a lot of people that there's been about 32 I've contacted in the last year and a half or so since I've been doing this. And I think out of 20 of them, they were all looking at getting a Howitt used somewhere. And now they're all like, they all want a new one. I know at least 12 to 15 of them have put their names down already
That's awesome, dude. It's
for
been,
the
yeah, like
list.
I
It's
said,
crazy.
it's what's crazy is, like, I honestly expected way less than this. Like,
Right.
because I
Yeah.
looked at, like I was telling you, I mean, in the first 3 weeks, we've received more reservations than I mean, more reservations than in the first 6 months
Right.
under previous owner cycles, probably like 7 years back. I mean, this is more, or I mean, we're talking, I mean, if we keep going at this rate, we're going to be 10x what they were in one of
Wow.
their years, which was still, I mean, it was still significant enough that it was good sales. But I mean, it's going to be big, and I think at this point, one of the things that I'm focusing on is
Hmm.
ensuring that we can maintain, you know, proper manufacturing throughput at the same time as maintaining that same quality and the same
Yeah, yeah, that
performance.
makes sense.
So performance, so you know, you rate it on a lot of different levels, but I want to be on like on par and over par on all of these different things as far as quietness, speed, everything that you would want from a bow, you know, proper tillering. Everything needs to be perfectly dialed, but also we need to be able to produce enough to make sure that, you know, customers aren't waiting, you know, a year. I mean,
Yeah,
that's not what we want either. So a
sure.
lot of people call me up and they're like, "Hey, how quick can I get it?" And I'm like, you know what, like my philosophy is there is no place in Damon Howatt for just
Hmm.
producing just to get it out the door. It needs to be
Sure.
perfect. You know, everything needs to be dialed down. I want each bow to be a living piece of history that someone is going to tell their relative or their descendant, you know, down the line. And that's part of why I actually, part of the reasoning for the descendant bow, which I actually came up with that name. So
Yeah,
the descendant, the youth bow that, you know, that can actually start out the young, you know, getting started with the whole traditional thing. Cause I think,
yeah,
you know, many times they just get started with compound bows, but then they come back to it. But now we have a chance. Hey, like let's create like that high end, still priced affordably, but a high end bow that you know you can give your kid and they're gonna really love that thing, you know, long term. So it's kind of
hmm,
exciting, and they can pass it down to generation. I mean, we want to build that quality that
yeah,
how
yeah.
it's for that those bows get to be passed down for multiple generations and they're still going to perform well. I mean that's the Howitt DNA that how it's known for. You know, we're not going to
It
deviate
is.
from it. So
It
it's
is.
exciting.
That's amazing. Yeah. So tell us a
Cool.
little bit about your Trad Tribe brand that you're kicking
Yeah,
off.
yeah. You know, one thing I've noticed with just archery in general is it is a niche. It's a really good
Hmm.
niche, and it's a niche where you know if you find your right followers, they're with you for life. And I think what I want is to be able to create a life. I wanted to create a lifestyle brand that can really emulate what Damon Howatt has been known for in its history and
Yeah,
into the future. And so Trad Tribe is basically, and we haven't set up the site yet or anything,
yeah,
but we're coming
yeah.
with a bunch of different really cool apparel options, hats, t-shirts, you name it. And we're, you know, they're going to be affordable, but they're also going to really be able to emulate that traditional pride that a lot of us have, you know, as traditional archers who really care
Yeah.
about niche. And there's not a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of different apparel brands for like compound bows. I mean, you got, you know, there's a bunch of different ones out there, but there's not a lot representing and growing the traditional niche. And that's what I want to be focusing is I don't want this to just be a Damon Howatt brand where I'm just producing bows for people that call me. I want this brand to be something that exploits traditional archery for everyone so that more
Hmm.
people learn about traditional archery, more people get into traditional archery. And I think that that's where, you know, we can have, you know, a really cool brand that people can rep that really show their pride for the
Yeah.
traditional archery sport. So I'm just excited about Trad Tribe because we're gonna have some really cool things coming out. And also another thing that's really cool about Trad Tribe from the marketing perspective, and I hope I'm not giving away any secrets here, but the cool thing about it is you can actually advertise on Facebook and Instagram for a company that doesn't sell the weapon itself or a weapon,
Right.
whatever they
Yeah.
call it. But basically, you can sell stuff that support the sport and you can
Hmm.
advertise it. And that's the cool thing is we're going to be able to really, you know, use that to pump the advertising to support traditional archery in general. And that'll actually benefit everyone. I mean, it's not going to be just Damon Howatt, but it is going to be cool because Trad Tribe is going to be designed by Damon Howatt. We're going to put that on everything.
Right
So
on.
you're going to be, and we're going to sell Damon Howatt merchandise too on the site. So you're going to be able to rep that exact brand only, but we want stuff to have, you know, really, there's a couple stuff on the Trad Tribe, Instagram page. You can see that we're going to be coming up with stuff in the future, but just some really cool things that guys are going to be excited to wear. And it's more of just like, people will ask you like, what is that? You know, what's, you know, I don't need any pins or whatever. I mean, what is
Yeah.
this? And kind of tell them the story, but behind like the fact that traditional archery is literally the most fun sport. I mean, compound is great. It's been around. I mean, nothing against not bashing compound. A lot of guys still shoot compound, but there's something special about traditional archery, and it's just this raw sport that's just, I don't even know, it's hard to even put in words something that is so close to like the perfect raw experience of archery. I mean, you start augmenting it
Definitely.
with so much of this technology. I mean, I've seen all kinds of, I mean, you basically have scopes now for your, I mean, just all this weird stuff with compound. I mean, cool. Okay. Yeah. You're just going to take down the animal, but like, is it actually fun? It takes that skill out of it. And I think that's part of what's happening to our world in general, is like, we're getting so separated from like the sport of what we do that we're just, I mean, that's why I don't, people who just go to the store and they just grab meat off the shelf. I mean, it's just such a mind-numbing experience. There's like nothing. You're not connected at all to your food, to anything.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, like, it's like traditional archery, though, it puts you in that front seat of being able to just experience what archery really is. And so that's part of Trad Tribe. Like, I just want to use that, I mean, to really kind of move the movement forward to adopting traditional archery. And I think a lot of people already are adopting traditional archery. So I see it as a growing thing, which is so cool. Because a lot of these people, they only shot compound, and they come back and they're like, a lot of the people that came by our ATA booth, they pick up the conviction and they're like, yeah, I've never shot, I only shoot compound. They pick that thing up and they sling a couple arrows, man. They are just loving it. Like they literally, I had multiple people were like, I will take this home right now. Can I please take it home? And I'm like, I wanted to, but I was like, no. But that's
amazing.
I mean, it's just fun, like there's something cool about, it's been around for so long too. Like archery is literally like, it's so old. I mean, it's down. I mean, I was just reading verses in the Bible about it. I mean, this is old stuff. I mean, this is stuff that's all the way back as far as you can imagine. I mean, this was literally the purest sport because it's been around for so long. I mean, I think it was listed as one of the oldest sports, period. I think it was probably one of the first things that was used to ever, to feed mankind in the beginning. So, it's one of those things that something that old doesn't just get canceled by technology. And that's what's cool about it, is it's not about technology with traditional archery. It's about that raw experience. And you can come up with better ways to maintain traditional archery and have a neat product. I'm not against innovation.
100%.
I think there's going to be innovation. Damon Howatt's going to see a lot of innovation, but it needs to still keep that same DNA of that traditional archery, which we're going to maintain.
100%. I can tell you for sure, like I see a separation between the bow hunter and the shooter a lot of cases. And when I have a fellow that comes to me and says, hey, look, I want to shoot a stick and string, but I don't want to do XYZ, wound, injure. Like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, first of all, you're going to have to relearn how to hunt a little bit, because you're going to have to get closer, and you're going to have to maintain, because it's perishable skill. And I've had guys come back now that are established 3D champions, and no one knows they're shooting traditional, and say, you know what? I'm a better shot with my compound because of the traditional platform, and they're like, just don't say anything to anybody about who told you that. Right. And so I find that very interesting, I mean, and I'm not going to out them for sure, but I mean, I'm sitting here in Eastern Ontario, Canada, and I know 3 or 4 folks that are like, people would just, spill their coffee and drive off the road if they knew these folks probably shot their traditional bows more than their compounds, right? Because they need to maintain that, and they're having fun. And again, like, it's funny, it's nothing against compounds, but it certainly will. I had one fellow say it will change your perspective on archery totally, right? So,
and that's what you mentioned, that just that fun aspect. I think, like, when you have fun with what you're doing, and it's just an exciting, it's a fun sport, when you're doing something that's more fun. And personally, I think traditional archery is way more fun than compound. But when you're doing something like that, the sport lasts, like you're still doing it. You're getting your friends to do it. It's more of an exciting thing. And I think that's why, that part of traditional specific archery is what is going to keep people hooked. I mean, it does. I mean, you've had many people transfer over from compound to traditional yourself. I mean, I mean, it's addicting. It's
our little girl is, like I said, she's been shooting since she was 2.5. Now, she's tall. She's in a men's 9 shoe. So you can imagine how tall she is for a 12-year-old. But my
Wow.
point is, she's been shooting a long time. I have people frequently come to me, how dare you let your daughter shoot a 40-pound bow? I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. She's been shooting since she was 2.5.
So cool. That's awesome.
So, I mean, for the last 3 years, she's been shooting a bow in between 25 and 35 pounds off and on as she
That's neat.
worked her draw length into it. I mean, because in Ontario, we have hunting weight restrictions and you've got to
Yep.
abide by those restrictions. 39.7, I believe, at, you know, at the draw length of your bow. So, for deer anyway, in Turkey, it's higher for bear
Yeah.
and moose. But I mean, I am now relearning everything that I learned as a kid through her eyes. And I'm going
That's
through all of these things again, and this year, I hunted by myself 7 times. In the last 3 years with her following me, she's been with me every time.
that's so
And
cool.
I was like missing her every time I was
You
out
know what's
because
you know what's so cool about this, and
perspective, right?
I love that. I love that you mentioned, this whole like generational thing. Like
Yeah.
traditional archery, it doesn't just have to be, it's not just you and the bow, it's you and the bow and the others who do it with you. And I think that's the cool thing
Mm-hmm.
is like when you have your daughter or whoever it is, I mean, it could be your friend, whoever you have like actually active in this sport. I mean, that's just such a beautiful thing, especially the family aspect that you've been able to
Yeah.
kind of contribute to your daughter. I mean, that's just like, I mean, think about what that, I mean, generations down the line, it just keeps going. And those times that you spend together, I mean, you look at the digital age, so many people are so
Yeah.
stuck on their phones and so stuck in technology
Mm-hmm.
that they never experience what it is to even be outside. And many people are like, well, what do you even do outside? Well, like archery is a great way to get outside and have a ton of fun. So I just think, I mean, going back to that whole, like being able to put some excitement in traditional archery and people help people to understand how exciting that is so that
Yeah.
they want
Yeah.
to try it. I mean, that's what's
Yeah.
so cool. That's what I want to do with Damon Howatt, with Trad Tribe, with all of these things. And I think being able to bring people into it bring generations into this whole adoption of traditional archery. I mean, I love what you're doing with your daughter. I mean, that's just those moments you never forget them. And that's so cool that you're able to spend that time with her.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. And it's funny when it comes down to that whole generational thing, you can see her connecting to her ancestry far
Yeah.
beyond the bloodline or, our family line. You can
Yeah.
see it. I mean, she had a deer walkout this year that was honestly probably the second largest buck I've ever seen in a hunting situation in my life at 12 yards. And I know a lot of people that would have risked a shot at that deer. And she
Mhm.
passed it up. She looked at me and she goes, I don't want to wound it, Dad.
No,
And
that's awesome.
so I said after, well, what was wrong? She said, well, he screened out by those cedars. And I couldn't see that from my angle. But
That's so cool.
she said, and so that ethics piece came into play for her.
Beautiful, man.
And
Wow.
so like,
And
and
that's
then
something that I
the
love.
respect and all
The
that, right?
hunting aspect of
That
traditional archery,
connection.
that respect, that connection is
Yeah.
something you do not get when you just go to the store and you just buy some meat. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally
True.
just just every I don't even I don't love that, but I love when it's when it's done in that correct way, just like you described. I mean, that's just so cool. I mean, I think when you're out there actually doing it yourself, that's when you actually have that
Yeah.
connection. And that's how it was intended in the beginning. I mean, that's how I think. I mean, it was never until this 21st century where you just,
That's right.
everyone hunted for their own stuff. They grew their own food. And I mean, that's the traditional way. I mean, if all the systems in place that hold this complex structure of what we call
Yeah.
life fall down,
Yeah.
traditional archery could actually save it. I
It's
mean, you
true.
think about that. I mean, I think traditional archery holds a special spot in not just history, but in future history. I mean, the future. So,
Sure.
that's yeah. Thanks for sharing that story. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Um, I guess the last question I got are you, I guess you already talked about it a bit, but are you going to add any accessories to the Howatt brand at all? I guess that's probably still probably in the works, but
It's definitely in the works. Like
yeah.
a lot of people are asking me these things, and then or some people call me up. They're like, "Hey, do you sell this? Do you sell this?" And then I have to tell them, "Well, it's actually only been about 3 weeks,
Yeah.
so we're just trying to get stuff put together right now." So I mean, we definitely plan on getting to that. I mean, Damon Howatt, Martin Archery, I mean, that they were like one of the premier sellers of traditional products for so long.
Sure.
They were like the biggest in the world actually for a while. And
Yeah.
so I do want to get back to that. I mean, we're going to be partnering up with some great companies to probably, we're going to have arrows. We're going to have, we're going to have a lot of different tabs, accessories, different things that we do plan on offering. But for now, it's, we want to do what we do best first, because we already have so many reservations.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah.
First. And so once my whole thing is the customer is always first. And we have a lot of people who are waiting for bows already right now. And so I want to make sure that that's our first priority. And then we'll expand to other things. And that's the same thing with Trad Tribe. I've started it up, and it's going to be easier for Trad Tribe to do things like, the hats and t-shirts, because it's just one design and then we can ship stuff and it's not going to be a big issue. But when it comes to like some of these tabs and accessories, I want to kind of innovate with some of those things too, and maybe bring some new products that are going to be really cool. Get the Howatt name on that, get that out. I mean, that's going to be, you might have a whole bunch of bear shooters shooting with Howatt tabs. You never know, because we got some cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, we definitely have some new stuff in the works, but it's going to take time. That's another thing I just want to say, over this whole call and just everything I'm doing with Howatt is, it's not like I don't want to just say, hey, we're just going to just become the biggest company overnight. Like, that's not going to happen. I want to be humble first. And I think that's really important, is just to be humble. I mean, hey, there's different ownership cycles. Things have not always been how I hoped they would be. Mm-hmm. And now it's my chance to change that, but change doesn't happen overnight. I mean, we've changed a lot of things already. Like, we have our own catalog, we have our own website. We've got, hey, I have business cards that say Damon Howatt on them. I mean, there's tons of stuff there, but what I'm really now excited about is focusing on the production side of it, being able to produce things at the quality to maintain, there was a lot of issues, that happened in some of the previous ownership cycles as far as quality goes as well. And I want to fix those things. I mean, we want to make sure that we're, I don't want to just get bows out and put only 2 coats of clear on just because it was easy and because I needed it. I mean, that's kind of, that's not staying true to the Howatt DNA. We're known for that quality. I want us to stay there. And so I guess what I'm just telling people is like, hey, like, we may not have it all together immediately, but we are going to have it all together before we actually ship a product to someone. And so if you have to wait a little bit longer, I'm not going to promise anything that I can't deliver on as well. So some people are asking me, hey, can I have a date? Can I have a date? And I'm like, you know what? Maybe you just need to go buy a bear bow, because we're going to, no, I'm just kidding. But I'm going to, essentially what I'm going to do is, when I tell you a date, I'm going to hold by it, but it's only going to be until I'm able to give that date. So those reservations on our website, we're going to give you a call when we know we can produce that within 30 to 60 days. And,
fair enough.
So, I mean, that's, we're going to take it slow at first. We're not going to grow into some massive company right away yet. I mean, we have great history. We have great products, but we're just going to, it's going to be slow and steady that wins the race. But as things progress, we've got a lot of talented people on board, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited about the future for the brand and some other models of bows. So
that's awesome. Right on. Well, I got a few minutes to wrap up here, but you want to talk a little bit about your Exile line at all?
Yeah, no, I'd love to, man. So yeah, on those other bows, you totally read my mind there. So
you kind of
the thing that I've been wanting to do is right now, and I talked to a lot of dealers, I surveyed a lot of dealers to talk to them about this as well. And it seems, everyone's saying the same thing. And that is that, hey, we only have a couple of choices, at our store, at our shop. And that is either a cheap off-brand bow that's not well QC'd. I mean, just some cheap thing that's right around $100, right? We have that option. And then we've got, bear stuff that's, right around that $500 mark, $600 mark. And then we have your stuff, which is a little bit higher end, obviously, in that $700 to $800 range. And what I'm very excited about is creating an Exile line. It's not going to be made by Damon Howatt. Okay. And this is totally separate. It probably may even be a different, a whole different website, actually, under Exile. We actually exilearchery.com. So we're going to make a line that's right around the $299 to $399 range, maybe $370 would be like the average. But these bows are going to be high quality. Okay. Like we're actually, they're not just going to be, we're not going to slap anything together, and we're going to test quite a bit and probably send out samples to probably even you to have you test some of these things before we actually submit, actually go ahead and actually the product, but basically it's going to be Exile bows designed by Damon Howatt. We've got our boy Ben here. He's actually worked on some of those designs, and all of these products will be QC'd for proper tillering, proper centering, arrow centering, everything before anything gets shipped. So but will be imported. Like most of these will be imported or partially imported. We may like finish some of the processes here in the US likely, but these are going to be, it's going to be something that you could actually sell to someone in your shop, or you would buy if you're wanting to get into traditional archery, or you want something that you can be around and you're not super worried about it, but it's still going to maintain that high level DNA from Damon Howatt line, but we're going to have probably less, less laminations. We're going to do something to where a simplistic aspect to it, but still high end. So it's not going to be just that cheap experience where someone gets a bow and it's like a 1/2 inch tillered or a 1/2 inch off on brace heights top to bottom. I mean, something just crazy. I mean, we want to have something to where once you string that thing up, it's perfect. It's just like a Damon Howatt, but it's not as fancy, because you're always going to have, we're going to always make all of the made by Damon Howatt bows will always remain in the US. It's going to be a US made brand always. But then we want the Exile brand that's going to be designed by Damon Howatt, and kind of in a more affordable line, but not an affordable $100 cheap crappy bow that's going to snap on you like you see so many of these others. I mean, I'm constantly surveying the forums, and we actually talked to several manufacturers at the show, and a lot of them, I just looked at their quality and I was like, I don't even want to put this on an Exile line. I feel bad, because it was a great cheap bow, but like, we're going to have to do something custom. We've also talked to a manufacturer who may actually set up a plant for Exile, the Exile line specifically. So it's 100% like Exile only products that are sold through there. So we have a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm talking to everyone. I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, but we're going to find someone who can recreate that same handmade quality that's present, same grips, same everything. So a lot of those things where you're like, I love Damon Howatt, but I just don't want to spend the $600 to $800. You'd have something that's going to be $350 that you'd be able to still keep and pass down to, generation, still going to last, still have the same warranty. That's another thing I want to say is the warranty. We're going to keep the same warranty on any of the Exile line that any of the other bows would have, and the same service. So it's exciting. We haven't done that yet. And a lot of people are like, oh, imported. Oh, that's terrible. But you know what? There is a way to do it if I'm able to. And if I'm not able to, the quality isn't there, like, we're not going to launch it. I mean, sorry to break anyone's hopes, but if it's not perfect, and we have bowyers here who are they've been doing it for years. They've built their own bows. They're going to be working with those same products to ensure that they meet those same quality control specifications. And everyone will have to meet that. We're not going to be, we're not going to ship, we're not going to mass produce these things either.
That's awesome.
Small batches. And we're going to test everyone. And if we need to, like I said, we may do just part of it and then do the rest of it in the US. We may do the tillering here, do part of that to where we maintain that perfection. I'm not going to do anything unless it's perfect. So it has to be perfect. And I'm going to hold to that too. It may not be easy. We may have to throw away product. That's okay. It's not about profit in this industry. It's about relationship. And so if we can give people great products, then that relationship will be a positive one. If we're just shipping out junk, that's not what we're about. I mean, I'm also, one thing I wanted to say about this company is we are not held by any shareholders. We're 100% privately owned. And that's exactly actually how Damon Howatt started. It was Damon Howatt himself. I mean, you can look at pictures, and I think that, because a lot of these ownership cycles that kept buying Martin Archery and Damon Howatt, they're all owned by this shareholder and that shareholder, and all they care about is their profit. Okay. Yeah. But for me right now, this whole brand, I could stop everything and do nothing, and I'm still going to be fine financially. And that's what's important, is when you're not in debt to someone. If I'm in debt to someone, now I just have to produce, right? I'm motivated to ship you a crappy bow just because I need your payment. That's not what Damon Howatt was in the beginning, and that's not what it's going to be moving forward. So that's kind of the exciting thing, is I think being able to have that private ownership, bringing it back to its roots, it's going to be good, man. And I'm just super excited about the future.
Well, I got to tell you, the way things are going already, from the response I've got down here on my end, from what you're telling me, it's pretty, people are pretty pumped up. So
it's exciting, man. And we got to follow through with it. It's easy to talk, I can talk here and tell you guys about all the exciting plans, but no one's going to really believe me until it happens because I'm new, like I get
yeah.
that. I honestly respect that a lot because a lot of people do just talk and spew out stuff. So we're going to have to, it may take us, I've been telling people anywhere from 3 to 6 months till we're fully in production. It may be less, it may be more, but I'm not going to promise anything I'm not going to do. So it's exciting though.
I'm pretty pumped up. Just to wrap up, when I was a kid, the first thing I ever heard about was the Super Diablo. My dad and his uncles talking about it. So, I mean, that was back in the early 70s, right? So, yeah,
Nice.
I really appreciate you taking the time to, in your schedule to talk with us.
I'm just sorry it took me so long to finally get here on screen. I mean, it's like, it's going to be crazy as we get production set up in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be crazy. Probably the next couple of months, I'm going to be hammered, but it's good to talk, man. I appreciate you allowing me to come on to talk. I love what you're doing with the podcast, man. Keep it up. It's great. And
right on.
think it's cool to have more people like you out there promoting the traditional archery.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot for your time, Josh.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Anytime. We'll have to do another follow-up maybe once we have a production set up. Maybe we can show you some of what we're doing.
That'd be cool. Fantastic. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Grant. Have a good one.
You too. So I'm really excited about the future of Damon Howatt Archery. This is a company I've now followed for almost 40 years, like I said, and really with the drive and passion Josh has to bring Damon Howatt Archery back to its organic, historic roots is really apparent. I can't wait to check back in with Josh in a few months and see what, is developed from what is really a company that is legendary for producing recurves and longbows that are flawless performers and have a very high level of craftsmanship all the world over. Thanks for following us. Thanks for watching. You can follow us on Amazon Podcasts and Audible, as well as Apple Podcasts, and on Instagram at the Code of Traditional Archery. Thanks for walking with us. We'll see you again.